All right, today we are going to finish our Chapter 1 Show What You Know lesson. Yesterday we reviewed some problems that you had in 5th grade, and today we're going to look at some vocabulary that you learned in 5th grade and that you're going to need to know for this chapter. So we will be taking some notes today. I feel like everything on this sheet is important for you to have. I know that sometimes it's really difficult to take notes and listen at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and just go over the sheet with you and what it means. And then I'm going to let you choose to write down the parts that you think you really need. And you can write the definitions in your own words if you'd like on your notes page. So you should have your notebook with you and a pencil. You should put your name at the top, the date, and then Chapter 1, Show What You Know. And this time it's Show What You Know vocabulary, because that is really what we're covering today. All right, so the first part of the vocabulary is the words that we use to describe the numbers inside a division problem. So we have here 84 and 1500ths divided by 18 and 7/10 equals 4 and 5/10. So remember that the answer to a division problem is called the quotient. The answer to the division problem is called the quotient. Good. Then the number you're dividing up is your dividend, and the number you're dividing by is your divisor. So sometimes you will see this problem written like this. Your dividend goes in the inside, the first number in your division problem. 84 is what's getting divided up. It's getting divided by 18 and 7/10. This is your dividend, this is your divisor, and your quotient is your answer. This is your quotient. And I will be teaching you about how to divide by decimals. You may not have gotten to that last year, so I'll take some good time with you on it. I'm going to show you here real quick how they moved this over. So if you have a divisor that has a decimal in it, you need to get rid of it by moving it one place value. And when you move it by one place value there, you're also moving it by one place value here. And then you can just shoot your decimal up into your answer. That's how you get the 4.5. So we're going to learn more about that later on. Don't worry about it now, but I like to say things over and over, and I like to give you a heads up about things that are coming your way long time in advance. So because I feel like if you hear it again and again and again over time, it'll make more sense to you. So a lot of times this book, the GoMath program, asks you to estimate incompatible numbers. So what compatible numbers are, it means that you're not always rounding to the nearest 10th, 100th. It's not rounding. It's using numbers that make sense to the problem. So for example, in this problem, it makes sense because we know that 80 can be divided by 20 easily. This is close to 80, this is close to 20. We can use the compatible numbers 80 divided by 20 equals 4 for an estimate to our problem. Okay. Moving on to least common multiples. So remember the difference between multiples and factors. Multiples are the numbers when you make a list of numbers counting by a number. So let me give you some examples. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Those are all multiples of 2. 5, 10, 15, 20. Those are multiples of 5. So here we have a list of the multiples of 5, counting by 5s, and a list of multiples of 8. And this vocabulary word is the least common multiple. So it's the one that's in common in both lists. That is the smallest one they both have in common. So let's read the definition together. Smallest number that is a common multiple between two numbers is the least common multiple. So here our least common multiple, where our LCM equals 40. All right, then we have the vocabulary word greatest common factor. So we have to think back. Yesterday we learned about what factors were and how to find a factor in a problem. So here we go. Greatest common factor is the largest factor that two numbers have in common. So remember, you're thinking of all the numbers that fit in evenly to the number 10. Here 1 fits, 2 fits, 5 fits, and 10 fits. Then we do the same thing for the 12. 1 fits, 2 fits, 3 fits, 4 fits, 6 fits, and 12 fits. And I don't know why 1 is circled here. So 1 is common, 2 is also common, and I don't see any other numbers on that list that are common factors. So we have a 1 and a 2 as our common factors. And in the vocabulary word here, we see the word greatest. So which one is the greatest common factor, or our GCF? That would be the number 2. A common factor is, both of these are common factors. It's a number that is a factor of 2 or more numbers. So you can have more than one common factor, but there's only one greatest common factor. And then prime factorization, you're going to be learning, I think it's in chapter 1, lesson 2. And so it is going to be in a few days, but I want you to know in advance, just a little heads up, what prime factorization is. Prime factorization is a number written as a product of its prime factors. So in order to know what a prime factor is, you need to know what a prime number is. So let's talk for a minute about prime numbers. A prime number is a number that only has 1 and itself as a factor. So for example, 1 times 1 equals 1. That is a prime factor because 1 and itself is its only factors. We have 1 times 2. The only multiplication fact that makes 1 times 2 is, or 1, it makes 2 is 1 times 2. Then we have 3, 1 times 3. The only multiplication fact that makes 3 is 1 times 3. So these are all prime numbers. When we get to 4, we have 1 times 4 and we have 2 times 2 equaling 4. So that is not a prime factor. It's not a prime number, sorry. Then we have 5, 1 times 5 is the only way to make 5, so that is prime. For 6, we have 2 times 3, so that one is not prime. 7 is prime. 8 has 2 times 4, so that's not prime. 9 has 3 times 3, that's not prime. 10 has 2 times 5, that's not prime. So then we get to 11. 1 times 11 is 11, that is prime. So those are some of the prime numbers that we start with. And so when they ask us to do a prime factorization of a number, we're going to start with a number like 24. And you just think of any multiplication fact that will equal that number. So maybe 2 times 12. And then you circle prime numbers as you find them. So we see that the 2 is prime. Only multiplication fact that will make 2 is 1 times 2. So we circle that number. That's one of the prime factors of 24. 12 has another multiplication fact that will make it. We have 2 times 6. And I see that 2 is a prime factor, so I go ahead and circle the 2. That's another prime factor of 12. And I look at the 6 and I think, oh, 3 times 2 is 6. 2 is a prime factor, and 3 is a prime factor. So I take all these prime factors and I put them into a multiplication problem. 2 times 2 times 2 times 3, that will give me 24. So this is the prime factorization for the number 24. Now, I don't expect you to be able to do that all by yourself yet. We're going to practice that in a few days. What I do want you to know is what prime factorization is, and remember what the word prime number means. So I'm not going to have you write this page, but I would like you to take a few notes off this page. So at this point, I'm going to have you pause your video, take out your notes, and write down the things that you think you need to remember or what will help you learn about the vocabulary in this chapter. So go ahead and pause it. I'm going to turn the video off. When you're finished with this, you can go to your Think Central, when you're finished with this first, you always upload it to the Google Classroom. After it's uploaded, you go to Think Central and start a work page, write out all your work, do your Think Central assignment, check your scores, make any corrections, and then upload your work to the Google Classroom. All right.